Several months ago, I was at home and my wife was reading the newspaper and she said, "You need to read this, Dennis." And when my wife begins a sentence with "you need to," she has my attention immediately. Doesn't always have my attention, but when she says "you need to." And she shared with me an article that was in the South Bend Tribune about a young man who'd had this incredible encounter with God while in the hospital and had experienced a healing. And he was sharing this with a number of individuals. Our speaker this morning is that young man, Jeff Kling. He is a member of the LaPorte Missionary Church. He and his wife, Tracy, have 5 children and have been married 26 years. He attended Bethel College from 1983 to 1985 and has 20 years experience in sales, the last 5 years being a small business owner. But what's more important than all of that is that during the last 12 months, Jeff has been traveling around sharing his story about an encounter that he's had with God and the dramatic spiritual and physical healing that took place in October of 2009. A number of newspapers have covered this, but this morning you have the opportunity to hear firsthand from Jeff how God has transformed his life, has changed his life dramatically. One of the guys that plays softball with Jeff played baseball while he was at Bethel, is Robbie Prinkert. And Professor Prinkert told me yesterday, he said, "I watched the transition from one year to the next year, and I've never seen a transition quite like this. This man talks about Jesus just like anything else, with liberty and freedom and with enthusiasm as part of his everyday conversation." Jeff, come on up here and share. Would you give a warm welcome to our campus, Jeff Kling?
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was God with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, but the darkness has not understood it. There came a man who was sent from God. His name was John. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through him all men might believe. He himself was not the light. He came only as a witness to the light. The true light that gives light to every man was coming into the world. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet, to those who received him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Children born not of natural descent, not of human decision, or a husband's will, but born of God. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. That was written 2,000 years ago. We talked about John the Baptist coming into the world to let the world know about the coming Messiah, about Jesus. And as you plainly see, not everybody recognized Jesus as the Messiah. And here we are 2,000 years later, and we have that same situation. Jesus died on the cross, and a lot of people don't recognize him as the Savior. And I come to you today really as a witness to the truth, testimony to the light. And I'm going to tell you guys the truth this morning. And I think it's unusual that's amazing, actually, what God can do. And he can take sometimes the least likely characters that you would ever expect to have on a stage talking about Jesus. Sometimes he'll use those people to get the message out, of the truth. So what you need to know about me is very little, because this story is not about me. All you need to know is that, first of all, I'm not a pastor. I am not a missionary. And up until about 16 months ago, I wasn't really even a Christian. I was just an average, ordinary guy. And I was walking in that darkness. So to start out with, I'm going to go back in time a little bit for you kids so you understand just a little bit about where I'm coming from and how this story happened and how unusual it is. I was, as Dennis alluded to, I came here in the fall of 1983. And I am not a Bethel success story. I'm actually a Bethel failure. There's no reason for me to be on the stage today because usually you kids get to hear pastors and missionaries tell you great things and all the things that they do. And my story is quite the opposite. I was here from 1983, the fall, until the spring of 85. And when I got here in the fall of 1983, the only reason I came to this place was to play baseball. That was it. I was not interested at all in spiritual things. As a young man growing up in the city of Elkhart, I had gone to church, probably like a lot of you kids. And I had gone to church for one reason and one reason only, and that was because my parents made me go to church. I didn't have a choice. I didn't have an option. And as a young man, I really found myself rebelling against church and God because I was forced into it. I don't know if this makes sense for some of you guys. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. But what happened to me is I developed a very bad attitude about God because it was forced on me. And as I got into high school, I really didn't want anything to do with anything spiritual because when I was your age, all I thought about was fun stuff. I just wanted to have fun. That's all I wanted to do. And the reason I came to Bethel was because I had a chance to play some sports at different colleges. And Bethel College, I got a call from a gentleman named Dick Patterson, who was a baseball coach. And he convinced me that Bethel was the place for me. I could come and play 4 years here. It's a great college, close to home. Gave me a nice financial package, and I'm like, yes, I'm coming to Bethel. All right. I got here, and man, was I in for a little bit of a shock. I didn't do a lot of research, as much as I probably should have at Bethel at the time. But I got here, and I walked into, I thought at the time, it was like a prison camp. I'm going to be honest with you. I get here, and I find out that there's mandatory chapel. Got to be there 3 times a week. I'm like, all right. And then they told me, oh, by the way, there's a curfew. And oh, by the way, you can't go over to the girls' dorm at any time you want. There's certain hours. And I'm like, what is this? I thought this was college. I thought it was supposed to be fun. So I started thinking, if I come up with fun things in my mind, I'll bet it's against the rules here. I bet you can't even do fun things here. Right? That was my thought. So what I did at college was the same thing I did when I was younger. I kind of rebelled against that. I was the bad boy of Bethel College. If you had a spiritual bottom 20 guys that year in 1983, I was the bottom. I was in the bottom 20. I was the guy that used to come to chapel when it was over at Goodman Gymnasium. I'd walk in, I'd sign my name, I'd stroll through the stands, wave at people. How you doing? Then I'd slowly stroll out the back door and leave. I think in my 2 years here, I probably sat through 10 chapel services. Truth. That's the truth. Okay? Not only that, but I decided that I wanted to have some fun, so I would sneak off campus and go over to Notre Dame and party with Notre Dame guys. And I'd sneak back in after hours. That was pretty common for me. And it was, I think within 2 months of arriving here, I was put on probation because I got caught sneaking into the girls' dorm. All right? So my time at Bethel, as I think back about it, is not full of a lot of warm, fuzzy spiritual feelings. It's not that at all. I'm here to tell you kids I made a lot of bad choices at that time in my life. I made a lot of bad choices. And by the spring of 1985, I had flunked out of Bethel College. I was no longer here because I didn't have the grades. I was too busy having fun. And so I strolled out of here in the spring of 1985 thinking, I'm not going back to that school ever again. That school I want nothing to do with. And yet I find myself here today, which is very ironic. So, just fast forward real quickly. One good thing that happened to me coming out of Bethel is I met my wife here, my future wife. And we've been married now for 26 years, believe that. So, yeah. And the crazy thing is, most of those years, it had nothing to do with me, I'll tell you that. It was all her. But, so what I did in my life is pretty much what everybody else does when I leave college. Didn't have a degree. I went out and started working hard. I started focusing on raising a family, doing everything everybody does. I wasn't a bad guy. Wasn't a guy that got in trouble. I was a guy that basically just went out and did what they could do to make a living and it was all about me and my family. And I went through life. As an early adult, I kind of drifted back into church with our kids because we thought maybe we should take them to church because we were raised in the church. But you know, by the time I got into my early 30s, I was like, you know, why am I going to church? Why? I don't have to go anymore. My parents aren't making me go. I kind of felt like they still wanted me to go, but you know what? I wasn't going for the right reasons. I thought, this is kind of crazy. I really haven't ever got anything out of church. I think I'm just going to stop going. So by the time I was in my early 30s, I just drifted away from church. In the last 10 years of my life leading up to this event, I bet I hadn't been in church more than 3 times. Maybe on an Easter service and a Christmas service. That's about it. And so, what happened to me is something that could happen to anybody as I'm cruising through life, doing my own thing, not paying any attention to this God, this Jesus. I didn't want anything to do with him. Nothing. Something happened to me that could happen to anybody, and that is I got sick. Okay? And I'm not going to get into any great detail about my health because it's going to take too long, and that's not the point. But the story I'm going to tell you this morning is a story that took place from the end of September to the middle of October 2009. It's a true story, and I want you guys to hear it because I'm supposed to tell you. So, I'm in the doctor's office. I get a phone call. The morning was September 28, 2009. I'm at home. I had been to the doctor the week before. And I won't forget this call. The nurse called me up on the phone and she said, Jeff, the doctor has your biopsy results back on a test they ran the week before. And he would like to see you today. And I said, today? And she said, yeah, he'd like to see you in the next hour. Well, when you hear that from a nurse, you know the news is not good when they want to talk to you that fast. So I called my wife up, and we raced over to the doctor's office, and we sat down. And I walked in the doctor's office, and right away, I'll tell you what, the doctor had a look on his face that scared me, because he was looking at me like I was already dead. I can't describe it, but that's what happened. He looked at me, and he said, Jeff, I want you to sit down. I said, okay. He said, well, we figured out what's going on with you. You've got cancer. And the type of cancer that you have is called malignant melanoma. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? He said, well, it's the worst type of skin cancer you can have, Jeff. This is the type of skin cancer that if you catch it early, it's like a lot of other cancers, it's not a big deal. But if you don't catch it early, the problem with this cancer is it metastasizes, it moves to different parts of your body, and then it can kill you. And in your case, we have not caught this early. This is a later stage cancer. And as a matter of fact, we look at a couple things. Initially, we look at the Breslow report, which talks about the depth of the tumor. In my case, it was in the middle of my back, is where the location was. And he said, your Breslow report shows a tumor depth of 4.5 millimeters. And we get real concerned when we see a depth of 2 or 3 millimeters. When we see 4.5 millimeters, that's when we're looking at stage 4 cancer. And to be honest with you, that's about as bad as it gets. And I said, well, what does this mean? What are we talking about here? I'm trying to process this. He goes, well, I don't want to scare you. He goes, but the situation for you is that long term, 5 years out, your survival chances right now are maybe 20% best. So here I am. I'm a 44-year-old man at the time, just about 45. And I have to think about, I could die soon. This isn't supposed to happen until I get older. I'm thinking 30, 40 years down the road. And I looked at the doctor, I said, this has got to be a mistake. He said, no, it's not a mistake. As a matter of fact, this is so severe, he goes, I can't even help you. You're going to have to go see an oncologist. You're going to have some surgeries and treatments, and we're going to, you know, but he goes, we have to get on this today. You cannot wait another day. Time is already of the essence, and this is bad. So within 15 minutes of finding out I've got cancer, I am being rushed over to the LaPorte Hospital to start running tests on me, and I'm in shock. As you can imagine, I'm in shock. Because I'm like, this can't be happening. This is like a nightmare. So I get to the hospital, and I got to tell you kids, the first amazing thing happens when I get to the hospital. I walk in, and they check me in, and they put me in this little room. I walk into this like waiting room where they have, where you get the blood work done. And there's probably 4 or 5 people in there. And I walk in and I sit down. There's a gal reading a magazine sitting next to the wall, and I just plop down next to her. And my wife sits down. She goes, I'm going to go outside and use the cell phone. I'm going to make some calls. I said, that's fine, go. So here I am. I'm in my own little world. As you can imagine, when you find out you've got cancer, the last thing I was in the mood to do was to chit-chat with the person next to me about small talk. I was focused on what was going on with me. And as I'm sitting there in that chair, after a minute, I noticed that the gal that was reading the magazine, sitting next to me next to the wall, had put the magazine down, and out of the corner of my eye, I could see she was staring at me. And I kind of like this, and I thought, okay, this lady's staring at me. Maybe she knows me. I don't know. Well, a minute goes by, I notice she's still staring at me. And I'm like, okay. So finally, I turned and I looked at her, and I said, excuse me. I said, do I know you? And she looked real nervous. And she looked at me, and her hands were kind of ringing a little bit. She goes, no, I don't know you. And she said, I've never done this before. And I'm really kind of shy. She goes, but right now, I feel God is telling me to do a healing prayer for you. And I was like, okay, I must look really sick. I thought, she sees that I'm sick, and she's gonna pray for me. Okay. And then I thought, real quickly, wait a minute. Maybe she just sits in hospitals, and she just prays for people as they come in, because you can find a lot of sick people in the hospital. And then I thought, maybe she's just crazy. Because there's a lot of people out there that say crazy things. I've learned that in my 46 years of life. And then I thought, you know what? That can't be true. What she said, that cannot be true. God would never want to heal me. There's no way. Why would he want to heal a guy like me? So I looked at her and I said, you know what? If you want to pray for me, I guess I could use a prayer right now. It can't hurt. So she stuck out her right hand. She put it on my left shoulder. And she said a prayer out loud for 30 seconds. Got done. I opened my eyes. I looked at her. I said, you know, it's kind of strange you did that. I just found out maybe 20 minutes ago that I've got cancer. It's called malignant melanoma. She looked at me. She goes, well, that's strange. That's exactly what I have. I said, really? She goes, yeah. And she proceeded to tell me about her cancer. It was at an earlier stage than mine. She was doing some follow-up. She told me her name was Beth. She told me her first name. She told me she goes to a church called the Vineyard Church in LaPorte. And she starts to talk, and then they called her back to get her blood drawn, and she was ahead of me. And I wouldn't see her again for a while. And as she's leaving, my wife had walked back in, and she saw that I was talking to this lady. My wife's like, now, what are you doing talking to that lady? Good question. I said, well, that lady just prayed for me. My wife looks at me like, are you kidding me? I have never known you in my entire life to ask anybody for a prayer. I said, no, I didn't say that I asked her for a prayer. She said that God wanted to heal me, and she prayed for me. My wife goes, well, what do you think that means? I said, I have no idea. At that point, it meant nothing to me. Like I said, I didn't have real strong faith in my life. I'm like, I don't know what that means. I'm going to file that one away as one of those unexplainable things you cannot comprehend. Don't know what to do with it. File it away. So I just focused on doing what I could do, which is I got to go see an oncologist. So after the tests were done, the next day I was referred to a doctor at the University of Chicago Medical Center, Dr. David Jaheski, who agreed to see me in a few days later. We had all the tests and everything sent up there. We go up there in about October 6th or 7th, 2009, to meet with him and the staff of doctors to decide how we're going to attack this. I sat down with them, and they went over the tests. They're looking at me, running tests. And they said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to bring you back in on the 14th of October for the first surgery. Could be more. But we're going to do a surgery. We're going to your back. We're going to cut you open 5 inches, go in 2 inches deep. We're going to go to your armpit to remove lymph nodes. We're going to send those off for testing. We're going to bring you back in. We're going to run more tests, looking at different parts of your body where we think the cancer is. And then we'll take the next step at that point. So I left that day kind of feeling down, as you can imagine, because, you know, I'm in for a battle. And it's not going to be fun. So I went home, and I had about a week to think about things before I went back in for surgery. And that was a very interesting week, kids, because during that week you got a lot of time to think. And when you're thinking about surgery, you're thinking about possibly dying, all these things are going through my mind. Well, it was very natural for me to kind of turn my thoughts back to God a little bit, because at that time, you kind of do. And I remember I struggled that week so hard, I just found myself, I could not pray for myself. I thought, boy, I should probably turn back to God and praying right now. And then I thought, I don't think I'm going to do that. You see, I was looking for this physical healing. Who wouldn't, right? And I thought, if I turn to God now, I don't even know that much about God, but if I turn to God, I don't think he's going to listen to me. Because, see, my whole life, when things have been going my way and I didn't have that many problems in life, really, did I ever really acknowledge him or thank him for anything that happened in my life? Not really. I thought it was all about me. So I thought, if I'm God, I wouldn't give me a second chance. I wouldn't do it. Because I don't deserve it, to be honest with you. And I knew this. So I said, you know what? There's other people praying for me. I'm just going to let it go at that. They can pray for me. I'm going to focus on doing what I've done my whole life, and that is I'm going to try to beat this. I'm going to do it. I'm going to get with the doctors. I'm the one that's going to beat cancer. Just like I was the one that was going to live my life my whole life, thinking that I was somehow in control of my life. So, October 14th rolls around. And October 14th, ladies and gentlemen, is a day that would change my life forever. I'll never forget it. I go to Chicago for my surgery. I've been through 3 surgeries in my life before this, so I knew what to expect. They said, okay, you're coming up for a 3-hour surgery. You're going to wake up, we're going to put you in a recovery room. You're going to be in there for a couple hours, and then you're going to go home that night, and then you'll come back in a few days next week for the test. We'll go over the next step. I said, fine. So I go up to Chicago, and I go into surgery. I wake up. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Boom. Wake up in the recovery room. I'm looking around. I'm like, wow, that was quick. And I noticed that I wasn't feeling good, upset stomach. And I thought, this is typical. I know my stomach's going to be a little upset for a while. And so I said, this will pass. Well, this time it just didn't pass. From 3 o'clock in the afternoon till 11 o'clock at night, I was sick. I was so sick. I had an upset stomach. I couldn't keep from throwing up. Every time I tried to move around, I was having issues. And they kept trying to make me feel better. They were giving me a little medicine. They're like, well, you'll feel better a little bit. And I didn't. So finally, by about 6 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock, they said, okay, for some reason, you're having a reaction to the anesthesia, which I had never had before. And they said, you're going to have to spend the night in the hospital tonight. And I'm like, great. I do not want to spend the night in this hospital. I'll do it. So they wheel me down the corridor, and they plot me in a hospital, in Bernard Mitchell Hospital at the University of Chicago. I'm in my own room. It's quiet. People are visiting me, and they leave. And I thought, okay, now I'll get some rest. I'll sleep through the night. I'll be feeling better in the morning. Well, if you guys have ever spent the night in the hospital, you know one thing. You cannot sleep through the night in a hospital. Nurses come in and check on you all the time. All the time. And so I was dozing off. I was waking up. And finally, about 11 o'clock, I started to feel better. The stomach settled down. And then I fall asleep. And it's about 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And I was awoke. My nurse came in. Her name was Novi. She woke me up. She ran an EKG, and she left. And I'm laying in bed, and I'm trying to get back to sleep. So my eyes are closed, and I'm just laying there quietly. And I remember saying to myself, and I said this out loud, I don't know why, I just said this. I said, I wonder why I was so sick today. I wonder why I couldn't go home. I've never had this problem before. And when I said that, I wasn't expecting to hear any response. But as soon as I said this, I heard the softest little voice. Like if somebody walked up to you and they put their hands around their mouth and they cupped it and they whispered something into your right ear. Came into my right ear. This little voice said, Jeff, real soft but real clear. He said, Jeff, I made you sick today because I want to keep you in the hospital tonight because I want to talk to you. I remember my eyes shot open And I looked over to my right, where it came from, and I thought for sure I would see a doctor or nurse. I thought a doctor or nurse had strolled in the room and heard me and was responding. I thought it was a person standing there. So when I looked over to my right to see who was there, I was like, there's nobody there. And I thought, okay, I know I heard this voice. What is this? And I said the first thing that popped into my head. I said, okay, well, whoever this is, why didn't you just wait till I got home to talk to me? And I mean, no hesitation. I didn't have to wait. It was boom, instant. Jeff, because when you're home, you're always so busy. You're so distracted. You have so much going on in your life. I have never, ever been able to get your attention. And I thought, whoa, you know, that's right. Because see, I don't know about you kids, but I think you kids are a lot like me. I'm a creature of the 21st century. When I wake up in the morning, I turn the TV on, computer, music. I get in the car, turn the radio on. I come home at night, I got the TV on. I go to bed at night. You know what I do when I go to bed at night? I turn the fan on because I like the noise. I could not remember the last time I was in a quiet room. It had been years and years and years. And I said, wow. I said, okay, well, you've got my attention now. What do you want to talk about? Boom, no hesitation. Jeff, first of all, I want you to know that I have healed you for a reason. And I was like, what? I heard him saying he healed me for a reason. I instantly flashed back to that lady in the hospital, Beth, praying with me, telling me that God wanted to heal me. And now I'm hearing this voice saying that he's healed me. And you guys can't imagine how excited I was. I was so fired up. I was like, yes, this is incredible. This is just overwhelming. And I remember saying, awesome. And as soon as I said that, man, I thought, wait a minute. I felt bad. I said, wait a minute. This doesn't make any sense. Why would you want to heal me? If there was anybody that did not deserve a healing, it was me. And I'd seen good people in my whole life that had asked for healings, been in church, and they didn't always get those healings. I wasn't even asking for a healing, and he said he wanted to heal me. And I said, this can't be. This cannot be. I don't think this is possible. And I said real clearly, I said, you know what? Why would you want to heal me? I turned my back on you a long time ago. And without hesitation, didn't have to wait. He said, Jeff, he said, I've never turned my back on you. And I love you. And the most amazing thing happened. It was like he went like this, and he went pop, on the top of my head, right here. He hit me, and it just started to flow. It started to flow through my whole body. It went through my arms, my legs, my chest, my feet. It just went whoosh. It was the most amazing, overwhelming sensation, feeling of love like I've never felt in my life. I can't describe it to you kids. It's like going out into a swimming pool, take all the water out, fill it up with love, and just dive in. It just goes over your whole body. Just boom. I mean, that's the best way I know how to describe it. I can't tell you. I can't put it in words. It was so powerful, and my eyes shot open. I remember looking up towards the corner of the room, and I'm like, wow, what is this? What is this? And he said, Jeff, this is how much I love you. And this is just a little preview. And I said, if this is what it's like, I want to go with you right now. And as soon as I said that, I thought, what am I saying? I'm a 45-year-old man. I got a wife and 5 kids. 10 minutes ago, I didn't want to die. I was scared to die. And now, in that moment, I was like, I could think of nothing else but going with him. And I said that. I said, I want to go right now. And he said, Jeff, not yet. And I'm like, okay, why are you showing me this? What's going on here? What do you want from me? What's this about? He said, Jeff, this is what I want. He said, I want you, first of all, because I want you to love me. Love me back like I love you with all your heart and all your soul. Because I want you while you're here on earth to love others, just like you love yourself. And the reason that I've healed you is because I want you to go tell people this story. And I'm like, what? All right, wait a minute. I'm going to try to love you back. I can't believe how much you love me. I'll make that my goal in life, to love you. I said, but I'll be honest with you, I don't know if I can love everybody else. I don't even like everybody else. And he said real plainly, he said, Jeff, everyone is my son and daughter. And everyone's your brother and sister. Your job is to love them like you love your brother and sister. I said, okay. I said, but I can't go tell people this story. I can't tell anybody this story. This is a crazy story. Nobody's going to believe this story. I wouldn't have believed this story if somebody would have told me a few days earlier. I said, I'm not going to go out there and tell people the story because people are going to think I'm crazy. I don't want to be called crazy. And real plainly, he said, Jeff, he said, I want you to go tell the story exactly how it happened. I will take care of how it affects people and who believes this story. That's my job. Your job is to go tell the story. And I'm like, okay. And then what do I do? Where do I go? What do I say? And so I start rambling all these questions. I'm throwing questions on left and right. And he said, Jeff, he said, come to me. Here's what I want you to do. Come to me every day. I'll reveal to you what I want you to do. I'll open doors for you one day at a time. Just go tell everybody. So then I try to ask him the question, and the voice is gone. Nothing. I'm laying there going, all right, did this just happen? So I look down at my hand. I got this IV in there. I'm like, I know what's going on. I got this IV in my hand, and they got drugs in here, and I'm hallucinating. So I'm slapping myself. I'm awake. So the nurse comes strolling back in and said, Novi, do you guys have any drugs in here? And she goes, no, we just got fluids in there. After surgery, you just need fluids to replace the liquid you lost during surgery. So I said, what about pain meds? And you'll take all that stuff tomorrow. So I said, could I be hallucinating? She goes, no. I said, okay, just want to make sure. So I wake up in the morning and I'm telling you guys, I feel like a new man. I can't describe how I felt. It was just amazing. I felt like a new person. I get up, I'm like, I want to go home. Doctor says, keep your breakfast down, you can go home. So I did, and I got out of there. And I go home, and you know what, that week, I had a week to go back for the test. I'm telling everybody what happened to me. And people were calling, hey, how'd the surgery go? You got to hear what happened to me. So I'm telling people the story. And every person's like, what? Jeff, did this cancer go to your brain? I mean, I think that's what they're thinking. And of course, you know, my wife wouldn't believe me, my family, they're all like, man, I don't know. But everybody had the same response. They said, Jeff, that's a great story. Now, when do you go back to the doctor? Next Thursday. Well, we're going to be praying for you. We hope everything turns out well. I said, okay. See, nobody said, hey, Jeff, when you find out you don't have cancer, call me back because I want to celebrate. I didn't hear anybody say that. So I knew this was just the response. I wasn't getting the response I was hoping for. That's okay. So we go back up a week later, and I'm so excited. I'm like I'm going to a Cubs game. Let's go. So my wife's driving, and she's like, now how are you? How are you today? I'm like, I'm awesome. And she's like, well, what happens if the news is bad? She's concerned about me. She goes, what happens if you get bad news today? How are you going to react? I think she's thinking I'm going to go off the deep end. And I said, honey, don't you get it? I said, I can't lose. If I go up there and I find out that I don't have cancer, which is what I'm expecting, then I win. I get to stick around here. But if they find something wrong with me, something else wrong with me, and I'm still going to die, that's even better. Because after what I experienced tonight in the hospital, I can't wait to get back. I told her that. And she's like, well, what about me and the kids? I said, I don't know. I said, I don't know. I didn't think about that part. But I said, the important thing is that God thought about that part. So whatever happens to me, I just got to trust Him. That He's going to take care of you guys. I mean, that's it. So, of course, I go up there, and we sit down with the doctor, and he says, now, I want you to sit down. I said, okay. He says, Jeff, this is a very unusual case. I said, why? He said, well, I looked at, everything we're looking at shows stage 4 cancer, blah, blah, blah. And after we ran the tests, after your surgery, now it looks like this cancer's gone. But I'm very concerned. I think it went directly in your bloodstream, and it's gone to the part, blah, blah, blah. He starts telling me all the reasons why I still have cancer. And I'm just looking at him smiling. Like, yeah. And he's like, do you know something I don't know? He's looking at me like, what are you doing here? And I said, you got to hear what happened to me. So, of course, I tell him. And, man, I'll tell you what. I get about halfway through the story, and I start talking about God, and he puts his pen down. He looks at me, and he goes, okay. He goes, I think you're going to tell me you had some kind of religious experience in the hospital that night. And he goes, and that's all well and good. He goes, but I really hope that you don't walk away from me right now thinking you're healed, because I'm convinced you still have cancer. I said, Doc, I won't walk away from you. You can run all the tests you want. I said, but I'm going to take his word over yours. Amen. All right? So he said, I hope you're right. He said, I hope you're right. And so they put me back in. They run all kinds of tests, guys. They run tests over all my MRIs, CT scans, all this stuff. Taking tests of my blood, everything, looking everywhere. He calls me back about 2 days later, and he says, Jeff, he says, I don't know what to say. He goes, I can't find this cancer. Yes. He goes, I've looked over every inch of your body. He goes, I don't know what to do. He goes, I was looking for something to treat. I was expecting to give you treatments. I can't even treat anything. It's gone. He goes, so I just want to keep an eye. I want to see you every 3 months. For the next 3 years, I'm going to be looking you over real closely. And I said, that's good, because you know what we'll be talking about every 3 months. And so I just want to say this in closing, because it's getting late for some of you kids, but I'll tell you this is very important. You know, that was 16 months ago that happened. 16 months ago that this happened in my life. And the last 16 months, kids, has been so amazing in so many ways. Because I found my whole life, he was chasing me around, trying to get a hold of me. And I was running away as fast as I could. Just running as fast as I could. And he had to use cancer at a hospital to get a hold of me. He did what it took to get a hold of me. And these last 16 months, all I've been doing now is pursuing him. I've been pursuing him just as hard as he pursued me. And it's been amazing what has happened in my life in the last 16 months. And he's opened a lot of doors for me to go a lot of places. And he sent me here to Bethel today for a reason. Just like you kids are all here for a reason. And what he wanted me to say to you guys today is this. A lot of you kids, really in the same position I was at when I was your age. You're running around, you're doing your thing. He's been trying to get your attention. You've been so busy that you just haven't let him. You just haven't. And today, I'm here to tell you, that he wants me to tell you guys that he wants nothing more than to get your attention. That's what he wants. He wants a relationship with each and every one of us. And I'm not talking about church or doctrine or any of that stuff. He just wants to get to know you, and he wants you to get to know him. Because, kids, you cannot believe how much he loves you. He loves you so much. And I never knew that. And now I know it, and I just want to go out and scream it to everybody. I just want to tell them how badly he loves you. But you know what I realize? Is there's nothing that I can say that's going to convince anybody. I can't convince anybody. I wish I could. All I can say is this, is that he told me that night to come here and tell this story. And he said if I did that, he would take care of who believed the story and how it affected people. And I know today that I've done my part of the job. I've told the story. And I guess I just have to trust that right now, he's going to do his part. He's going to reach out to you guys, some of you, I don't know who. He's going to reach out to you right now, and he's going to do his part. He's going to get a hold of your heart. And I don't know how this ends today. I really don't. I don't know if I don't do this kind of stuff. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a pastor. I don't know if people want to come up for prayer, if they want to stick around and pray and think about what's been said this morning, if they want to connect with God. I don't know how that works. Maybe that's what works. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. I just know that he wants it to happen today. He doesn't want you guys to keep talking about the stuff that's going to happen in Bethel, all these great things that are going to be down the road. He wants it to happen right now, today. Each one of you. So Dennis, I'll turn it over to you at this point. I'm going to be here, guys, for a little bit. If you guys want to pray, if you want to spend time alone with God, you do whatever you think God wants you to do right now. But he wants you to do something today.